Welcome to the Period Besties Podcast with Stasha and Katie. Think about it as chatting with your best friends about all the TMI stuff you've never talked about before with two period coaches who've been helping hormones collectively for over 20 years now. I'm Stasha.
And I'm Katie, and we're pulling back the curtain on what it's like in the world of menstrual coaching. From puberty to menopause and everything in between, we're here to show you how period coaching can save the day. We'll share practical tips and information you can put to immediate use to improve your hormones and happiness.
We're removing the mystery, ending the taboo, and shining a light on just how powerful period coaching can be.
So whether you need period coaching or are considering becoming a period coach yourself, these episodes are going to help you. We'll share stories, coach live on air, and bring smart, savvy guests to share their wisdom too. Let's start today's episode.
We are coming to you today with a special episode. This is not our normal Tuesday drop. We're doing this as just an extra because there has been a ton of talk about this. And we waited intentionally because we wanted to see what came out of it instead of having a knee-jerk reaction. And we thought this would be a really great way of having this conversation, giving you the information that you need to make a decision that works best for you, right? Because again, you know, it's like everything else. Birth control has its time and its place. Yes, there's downsides, but yes, there's some instances where you need to do this. So we just want to bring this episode to you talking about tampons and the study that came out recently about all of the heavy metals and toxins that are in them, and have a conversation so that you can make an educated decision about your preferences, what works best for you, what feels good for you. So Katie, why don't you kick us off with what this study came out and said?
Yes. So it came out earlier this month. So that will be early July, depending on when this episode officially does air. But basically, this study came out of UC Berkeley, and it found that many tampons on the market, including both non-organic and organic, and I think most of us were under the assumption that if it was organic, it wouldn't have the chemicals in them, but they do contain toxic heavy metals like arsenic and lead. Now, why this is something we should be mindful about is that toxic tampons, the vaginal tissue is much more permeable than other parts of the body. And then the vaginal wall is also full of blood vessels, which basically means that your body's absorbing these heavy metals because they bypass your liver and directly enter your bloodstream. So that's why we want to talk about this, because we are exposed every day to toxins and to chemicals, right? Arsenic and lead are in many places. They can be in cosmetics, they can be in clothing, food containers, they can be in contaminated food. Obviously, the number one thing that we knew, especially growing up in the 80s and 90s, like the lead-based paint. Every time I moved apartments in New York City, I had to sign a release form that acknowledges that there was lead-based paint because the apartments I was living in were so old.
Yeah.
Right? Air pollution. And I think just in general, when we're thinking about toxins and chemicals, we won't be able to avoid them completely 100%. So it's up to us to figure out ways to reduce the toxic load any way that we can. And one of the most important studies that I've read about that is just by taking your shoes off before you come into your house is one of the best ways to do that. So even though we're talking about tampons and pads and different feminine care products today, there are other things that you can do that will have benefit to your overall health that is easy, right? Just taking your shoes off before you go into your house can be one of the best things you can do. And I wanted to share that right off the bat because it was a scary study when you look at it. And then when you actually go down the rabbit hole of what's going on in the world and with microplastics and all of these different things, it's definitely concerning. So what you can do on the daily makes a huge impact on your health, and small, simple things just by taking off your shoes. I know I said that before, but I think that's something really important to remember as we dive into this conversation today.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that didn't surprise me was the fact that the organics were no different than the inorganics in the study. And when I was doing the research for The Revolution Will Be Bloody, I looked at organic versus non-organic tampons. Disposable menstrual products are the number 2 disposed of thing in the world, right behind diapers, aka nappies. So we know that disposable menstrual products are a huge problem in the world. It's a very large contributor to greenhouse gases because it's organic material, but it's just thrown away in the garbage. So it creates a lot of greenhouse emissions. It's the number 2 thing disposed of. So it's obviously a huge worldwide thing. And because it's not food, the organic label is not the same as you would think of as organic foods. So the regulations around organic tampons is not the same as organic food. It's different regulations. Organic takes more water than non-organic. So if you're doing it for a purely environmental reason, organic is not exactly environmentally friendly. And I forget the exact amount. I have it in the book, but organics use a lot more water, especially when we're talking about tampons. It's not exactly this, end all be all of cleanliness, good for you, good for the environment. It's actually not. It takes more resources in different ways. And tampons do have plastic, even organic ones. So a pad has about the equivalent of 4 plastic bags worth of plastic in it. Tampons also have plastic, not as much as a disposable pad, but it also has plastic in it. So you're not, again, it's not as environmentally friendly as we've been led to believe. So it makes that struggle with organic versus non-organic. And now you're kind of going, okay, well, what's my budget? Is it really worth spending the extra? So you really, the ethical check-in right there is tough. So those tampon discussions already are fraught with emotion and trying to do good and trying to do right, but then finding out that you're not actually, and it's not really making that much of a difference, and it's still hugely disposed of, and it's still a huge contributor to problematic greenhouse emissions and those kinds of things. So the organic label, I wasn't surprised. I wasn't surprised at all, knowing that the regulations are different, knowing that they're already not any really much better environmentally, knowing all of those things. I was not surprised at all by that. And my first thought was, okay, on one side, everything has some level of lead and arsenic and those kinds of things. Vegetables can have arsenic in them. There's, different foods have different things in them that are considered toxins. So on one hand, I was like, okay, but how much? Because I'm a skeptical person and I saw that study come out and I was like, okay, but like how much? But then on the other hand, this isn't something that's going through your digestive system. It's going straight into your bloodstream.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay, but even a little bit is going straight into your bloodstream. So that's not good. So I was really like back and forth seesawing on this study when it came out, because we do tend to catastrophize, but then this is something that's straight into your bloodstream. So, what's the pros and cons? And I remember that whole thing coming out about the period underwear having the PFAS in them. So then it was like, okay, but now what do you do? And ironically, in the 90s, I had a keeper, which was a menstrual cup made 100% from rubber. They started in the 80s. I heard of them in the 90s and I started using one in the 90s. And I giggled because it was like, oh, 100% rubber cup is still from the 90s, the best environmental and body safe option. And I just had to laugh that it was like back in the 90s when I found this thing, not knowing anything about any of this stuff, not knowing anything about the toxicity and the plastics and the environment, none of that. And I just had such a giggle that the original keeper, like that first menstrual cup really out on the market, was actually the best environmentally friendly and body friendly, body safe period product that you could buy.
Yeah. And I love Laura Adler. She is an environmental toxin educator. We've talked to her before, and she always has great information because she's sharing about the study, but she's also like, don't panic. There's no need to panic, because she was even saying that we easily consume more lead on a daily basis via our food than the levels found in the tampons. Obviously, it enters our bloodstream. So we want to be concerned, but basically not panic. I do think it's interesting though, because they found that non-organic tampons had the higher levels of lead, while organic tampons had more arsenic.
Oh, so
there was a difference, a little bit of difference. Obviously not with the plastics and everything else we just talked about, but I thought that was interesting to note.
Yeah.
And lead and arsenic are part of the earth. And because of that, they're found in lots of natural things as well. So some exposure is just unavoidable. Like we're going to be exposed at some point.
Yeah.
But if anyone listening that wants to dive deeper into this, I think she's a really great resource because she shares the facts. She does the research for us. And then she's like, okay, we don't need to panic about X, Y, and Z. What you should be concerned about is A, B, C. And here's what you can do. This is where I learned about just I've always taken my shoes off. I've always lived in a home where we never wore shoes. But now I'm like, oh, it's added incentive to even take my shoes off anywhere I go.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. There's a balance in life, right? What we should be angry about is that no one cared enough about us to do a study in the first place.
Yes.
Like the anger should be towards the fact that we've never done these studies on women or on our menstrual products or used real blood to test menstrual products until last year, right? So the real anger should be the fact that we're just getting these studies now and just starting to care, in fact, in the first place. But yeah, it does seem to me that it's one of those situations where if you are somebody who uses tampons, maybe you can't use a cup, or there's a physical disability that makes it hard to use, or you just plain don't fit, they don't feel good, you hate them, whatever. You don't want to use an external method, a pad, a cloth pad, a bamboo, something like that. And you're still using tampons, you don't have to freak out. If you're looking for ways to mitigate those circumstances, there are other ways that you can have a bigger impact, right? Don't use plastic food containers. Don't microwave foods in plastics. Don't put your leftovers hot into a plastic container.
Don't leave those water bottles, those plastic water bottles in your car.
Yeah. Skip the plastic water bottles, get a glass water bottle, get a metal, skip the plastics. Like skipping the plastics in your day-to-day life would make a bigger impact than say, making yourself miserable for 4 days, 5 days out of the month and skipping tampons, but then making yourself miserable on that front. So I think one of those things is if you do want to make a difference and you want to make an impact for yourself, but tampons are just the only thing that works for you, then make that difference somewhere else. Make that intentional switch. Get a different shampoo, get a different body lotion. Really, body lotions are a huge place that you can make an impact on the toxins in your body because you're slathering it over your entire body. Your skin is your largest organ and it's absorbing everything. So if you really want to make that difference, look at your foods and look at your skincare.
Definitely. I think that's a really great point. Makeup too. If you wear a lot of makeup, switching that over. What I say all the time to my clients too, and I said this to myself because when I started really learning about this, I went down a deep rabbit hole and I got very overwhelmed and a little scared, honestly. I was like, one time we ordered Thai food and it came and it was like so hot and it was in plastic. And I was like, oh my God. Like, we're going to die. Like I had this whole thing. This was like 15 years ago. And then I'm like, Katie, calm down. What do I use the most of? I swear I wash my hands 1,000 times a day. So I'm like, okay, that's the first thing I'm going to switch is my hand soap. I'm going to get rid of the hand soap that has any sort of fragrances in it and get better hand soap. Okay. What's next? Shampoo. Switch that. I barely wear makeup anymore. You can all kind of tell, but when I do, I wear mascara the most. So I switched that out. And then because I barely wear makeup in general, I was like, okay, once in a while, like this is fine. So really finding that balance. But I say that to my clients all the time because we definitely want to not have anything that we're using consistently that's an endocrine disruptor. But if you're only using it once in a while, that's fine. So what I think could be really helpful is walking through some alternatives, what we've tried, what we liked, what we haven't liked, and maybe some other things that you can all just switch out.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great idea. I have to say, one of the things that I noticed, maybe it is part of the heavy metals and all these kinds of things that are in tampons, that a lot of the times when I had clients with really heavy periods or really painful periods, getting rid of the tampons immediately made their cramps
100%.
easier and lessened their flow. And I noticed it with myself as well, that when I had tampons that did have a heavier flow, and that it changed when I switched over to cups and cloth pads. And I've noticed it in clients as well. So if you are somebody who has painful periods or migraines or PMS symptoms, heavier flows, clots, those kinds of things, fibroids, cysts even, you may want to try eliminating tampons and just see if there's a difference, because I have seen it in clients over and over again. I know you have as well. And my students say the same thing when they make that switch, they notice it as well. And maybe it's partially because of the metals in the tampons, and maybe these studies will help us learn more about it. But yeah, so we've done a lot of switching over. And one of my favorite modules that I teach in period coaching school is green menstruation. So how can we make our menstrual cycle a little bit more eco-friendly and help mitigate or reduce or even eliminate those PMS symptoms, and potentially other things, reduce the endometriosis symptoms, reduce cysts and fibroids, those kinds of things. And I love that class because we get to dive into all of these different alternatives. So I'm going to kick us off with one of the ones that I've been really loving, and that's bamboo cloth pads or bamboo core period underwear. I love the bamboo because it's more absorbent than cotton. It's way more absorbent than cotton. So you can get a really very thin pad, but it's really, really absorbent. And bamboo is an eco-friendly thing. It grows quickly. It's easy to use. It doesn't take a lot of resources to use and to grow and make.
Do they have period underwear too that's bamboo?
I don't know, but I'm going to guess that they probably do by now. I mean, I haven't bought period underwear.
Soft.
But I love them. I mean, I have bamboo cloth pads and I have the period underwear, but I love my bamboo cloth pads. And I got cloth pads that are also bamboo fleece. So they're really soft, like sitting on a cloud, just beautiful, soft, cozy, like they're perfect for that feeling during your period of just something soft and cozy. So it has the bamboo fleece as the top, and then it has the bamboo core in the inside that does the absorbing, and they're magic. I love them.
I'll have to try that. I'm going to Google bamboo period underwear because I'm in need for new period underwear. And I think that just even saying them, like, I better be just so soft and like more comfortable than the ones that I have.
Yeah. Next time I need a new pair, I'm doing that, which I mean, maybe I won't need a new pair ever again. We'll see how long perimenopause takes, but
yeah, I might just like get one. I don't really like the ones that I have. I feel like they're old. I feel like a new pair would feel better on my body. I just feel like sometimes they by accident get put in the dryer and they've just like shrunk a little bit. They're just not like comfortable. So I keep saying I'm going to do it. So I'm going to look. We'll have to compare notes and we'll let you all know if we find some like really comfortable bamboo period underwear.
Yeah.
But oh, go ahead.
I will say that when you're using stuff like that, don't put them in the laundry with fabric softener because all that stuff coats and it needs to be able to absorb. So a vinegar rinse is the best way to wash them. You can throw them in, but then you need to do a vinegar rinse afterwards. And oftentimes when I'm washing my cloth pads, I will throw them in with my regular laundry, but then I do a vinegar in the little place where you're supposed to put fabric softener. And I'll put on the fabric softener cycle, but we just fill it up with white distilled vinegar, which actually vinegar is a nice fabric softener and the smell doesn't stick. So
yeah, we do that with every load of wash. We actually put white vinegar in, but period underwear is also great as well. Menstrual cups.
Yep.
So I would suggest, because it took me a while to figure this out.
Yeah.
I would put it in when I was in the shower, and I would take it out when I was in the shower, when I was starting out. And it really helped me get more comfortable in figuring out the best way to maneuver and do that. So that's definitely something to try. And I also feel like I had to retrain my brain, because when you're doing tampons, you have to change them more often versus when you're doing a menstrual cup. It feels like when you have a tampon, like you're just bleeding a lot, right? But when you're actually doing the cup, you're like, oh, that's really not that much blood. So it was also a really big mental shift for me too. And there's usually two sizes, like one size before you have children and one size after you have children. So if you've had kids and you're still using the same one from previously, you probably might need a different size. So just be mindful of the sizing on those as well.
Absolutely. I like the Put a Cup in It quiz. I think it's actually putacupinitquiz.com. I have it on the green menstruation slide, and I tell all of my students that if they're having a client who's switching over, to have them do this quiz. It's going to ask a bunch of questions. And then it usually, at least when I did it, it gave you 3 different brands that it recommended for you, because there's so many different sizes and shapes of cups.
Yeah.
So it was a really great way to make that investment, as they usually are more expensive, but to make an investment in something that was more likely to fit and work for you. So I really liked the Put a Cup in It quiz. It helped a lot to make that original. I mean, I got mine when there was only one cup available. It was the one, the keeper, the rubber. It was it. You had big and small, and those were it. Those were the options. But I did lose it eventually in one of my many, 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 many moves. And I thought I should replace this. And that's how I found it. And I did that little quiz, and it popped up 3 different brands that would probably work best and fit best for me. And I tried those, and I liked it. It was really helpful. So it makes it a little bit more like, oh my gosh, there's so many options and so overwhelming. Put a Cup in It quiz, take the quiz, get your suggestions, and then you have just a handful that are more likely to be comfortable for you to start with. So I really
put that in the show notes then for sure. I think that's a great resource because
it's fantastic.
Yeah,
it was great. But in the same vein, there's discs now. So they're much more flexible, and they just sit under the cervix just like a cup does. But they're a lot more flexible. Certain ones even hold more fluid. So if you're a really heavy bleeder, a disc might be the better option for you, especially if you have a shorter vaginal canal and the larger cups don't sit in you right. A disc can be really helpful. And I do like the discs. A lot of the girls have told me that the discs, because of the way they sit, when they go to pee, if it's full, they can actually empty it without even taking it out. Overflow. They can just pull the tab, like just pull it just enough that the disc will empty. They don't have to take it out. So when they're on the go, it's really easy, especially my bartender friends that are doing, a 12-hour shift and don't have time to go deal with changing a tampon even. They really love it because it's so easy. And then they can just spill over the excess when they go for a pee break. And then they don't have to deal with the changing anything. And it's really easy for them. So a disc is also there's some that are, I think, single use. So if you want to try one, you could try it with disposable version. And then if you like it, you can invest in a reusable version.
Okay. Yeah. I haven't tried the disc yet. I'll have to add that to my things to try to share, see how I feel about it. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, there's a lot of brands of those out too. So finding one, you can get them usually right in the same aisle as any other menstrual products, your drugstore or grocery store or whatever.
Yeah, that's the cool thing of watching this whole landscape change too, is like you can go into CVS now and get a cup.
Yeah.
Where I think my first one I think I got it at, it was either Whole Foods or Sprouts.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If you don't order it online, like those were kind of the only stores. And now you can go into a drugstore, pretty much any drugstore, and see that, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah, I love it. It's so cool to see the different things coming up. And in that same vein, back in the day, people used sponges as an internal tampon-like thing. And I used sponges as well back in the day. There was the Keeper and this. So I actually used sponges a lot back in the day. The only thing is that they are very porous, which they have the same rates of TSS potential because it's the same thing as a tampon. So it has the pores, but it's natural. There's no weird stuff in it. It's just a sea sponge, and you just have to clean it really. You just have to be very careful about cleaning. That's what it comes down to, is you have to give it a nice, good, thorough soak and make sure it's really clean between uses. But I really like the sea sponge as well. The only downside to those is that if it is full and you sneeze, you are screwed.
Oh God. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, that's the only downside to the sponges, is that you do have to empty them regularly. Otherwise, if you sneeze, you're done.
Okay. Good to know. And if you are like many people and you're like, I don't want to give up my tampons, like there are other options as well too. Yeah. There's NatraCare, there is Organic C, it's at August. There's lots of different companies as well that are more reputable and contain less. So there are options. There's lots of, and I feel like who knows what's going to come next.
Mm-hmm.
Now that there's research involved, we know that when we have research, companies start making changes because people demand it. So this was even though it seems a little overwhelming and scary, this is great that there's even a research project on this. The study came out, and now we can all be mindful and make the changes that feel the most comfortable to us. And I think the best thing is that there are options.
Yeah.
So if you were thinking you didn't have any options, there's lots of things. And we'll even tag some of our favorite, the bamboo pads that you use and different things that we like and that we also know are safer. So, and if you have any questions as well, please just reach out to us anytime. And Stasha has tons of information. She teaches this in school, in her period coaching school, and is also a great resource as well to ask questions and see. But hopefully this helped everybody just feel a little bit more at ease with what the study said, what's actually going on, and then knowing that you have good options moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Take a breath, find the places where you can help lessen that load. As you said, it's the cumulative nature of these things. That's the problem. And then, don't panic. When these things come out, and there'll be more, as you just said, we're starting to do more studies, right? So there's going to be more. There's going to be more studies that come out about other things that are attached to our health, our menstrual health, all the kind of things. So there's going to be more of these studies. So when you see those studies come out, take a breath, sit back a minute, observe, see what's going on. Don't panic in the moment. The knee-jerk reaction is what they're looking for. It's the clickbait, right?
Yeah. Be mindful of who you're getting your information from.
Yes. And that's why I say, look at several sources. I try not to just read one person's anything.
Same.
Look at several different sources. Look at several different opinions.
Yes. Moral of the story.
Take a breath.
We're all going to be okay. Take a breath. We're all going to be okay.
All right. Thank you so much for listening. I hope this helps. I hope this puts some mind at ease. Questions, comments, email us, slide into the DMs as always. We'll see you in the next regularly scheduled episode. Bye for now.
A big shout out and thank you to our sponsors for today's episode, Period Coaching School and Katie Bresek Wellness.
Thanks to you, our favorite bestie, for listening to the Period Besties Podcast, where no topic is TMI. And of course, share this episode with your besties.
Remember to leave us a 5-star review, nothing less than the best for us besties. And subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.
You can follow us on Instagram at Stasha Washburn and at Katie Bresek, or email us at periodbestiespodcast@gmail.com.
Check out more about us at katiebresek.com and periodcoachingschool.com. And of course, check the show notes for free goodies and extras that support this episode.
We'll see you on the next episode.
Bye for now, besties.